It is time to rank the top 10 best horror movies of 2018. Let's do this. What's up, guys? 2018 is almost over. I can't believe it. Where in the hell did the time go? But it's time to rank my top 10 favorite horror movies of the year. This has been a pretty decent year for horror movies, and we all know that one big movie that I freaking love came out this year, so it could make the countdown. But disclaimer too, because these movies are gonna be like mostly 95% horror, you know, because I know there's some thrillers out there, you know, movies like Unsane. I'm not going to include that in this list, even though I really liked Unsane. It had some horror elements to it, but for the most part, that was just a straight up nail-biting thriller. Whereas I'm looking for, you know, horror material. So know that going into this. Also, I haven't seen every horror movie this year because I try to avoid bad movies if I can, and I might have missed a couple of good ones. So if I did, let me know in the comments. But anyway, let's get right to the countdown. And I'm gonna give you one honorable mention before we get going too. This one's gonna be controversial. I like to open up with some controversy, so why not? The Open House. This is one of those movies that had me scratching my head at the reaction to it, because it wasn't that everybody like thought it was, nah, it wasn't that good. People were trashing this movie like you wouldn't believe. They were trashing this movie like it was one of the worst horror movies ever. It was not that at all. It had really good acting in it, actually. It had an irresistible premise with, you know, an open house and how those are pretty vulnerable. Like anybody can walk into an open house. And I thought the third act was pretty damn crazy, like nail-biting. The big thing that people did not like about this movie, and I'm not gonna put any spoilers in this countdown, was the ending. There are people that like this type of ending, and I'll just say it's ambiguous, I'll say that. I actually enjoyed the ending. I didn't need to know more, and that's all I'm gonna say. So this one surprised me. I actually enjoyed it, and I thought, you know, based on everybody else, I thought I was gonna hate it. So that's my honorable mention. Number 10, here's an interesting one, Terrifier. And I don't know if Terrifier technically came out in 2017, but this 2018 was the year that everybody was talking about Terrifier. And so I'm gonna include it in this year. And this was an interesting one too, because when I first reviewed it, I didn't like it that much, actually. And I ended up rewatching it, and after all the dust had settled, and just to give it another chance, and I found myself really enjoying it the second time, so much so that it makes this countdown. I even re-reviewed it, did a revisited review of it, and gave my second thoughts. And you know, just so you guys know, a lot of reviewers, the first time they see a movie, doesn't necessarily mean that that opinion of the movie is gonna be cemented in their brain. A lot of times, our opinions can change on movies down the line. Not all the time, but sometimes it happens. And that's what happened with me with Terrifier. It's one of the movies this year that I actually ended up enjoying the second time I watched it. Number 9 is gonna be another Netflix movie, The Ritual. This one really surprised me. It's one of those movies that's like a lot of it takes place in the woods, and that's already like a leg up for me. I love movies that take place in the wilderness, you know, like Evil Dead, stuff like that. And this one had a good group of characters. I guess they lost a buddy and they're gonna take his ashes and, you know, spread them in one of their camping sites. And then there is this creature. And right away I started thinking of movies like The Village. Whereas, will this creature be shown at the end, or is it gonna be more of like a psychological type thing? You know, what is this creature going to be? And I loved how everything unfolded in this movie at the end. To me, it was so satisfying, and I was glad that they went the direction they did, you know, without giving any spoilers. So I would highly recommend The Ritual if you haven't seen it. Number 8, one that I just watched recently this last month, Cam. This one surprised me. You know, I like movies that deal with a subject that is unique, and this one being Cam Girls. You know, and when you mix horror with that, I think it works well. This is like the definition of a psychotic horror movie. It really is. The main character in this movie, I found her irresistible throughout this whole thing. And really just the, you know, cam girls in general, what they put themselves through and how it kind of relates to the whole YouTube community, you know, where numbers are so important, and the things that we will do to, I guess, level up. You know, that's what Cam dealt with, and it's another one of those that completely satisfying third act with kind of an ambiguous ending that I really enjoyed, and it stayed with me. It's still with me. Number 7 is going to be A Quiet Place. I saw this movie twice, I think, in theaters. A really effective movie, actually, directed by John Krasinski. And one thing I loved about this movie, and everybody loved about it, was the premise. You know, how most of the movie, there's no talking whatsoever. And, you know, that's a fun thing to play with. And then you got these creatures that come out. And I think that was the one thing that could have been done better for me, was the creatures. Like, the creatures to me were kind of an afterthought. It was the premise that worked so well, and it was also the acting that worked so well between Emily Blunt and John Krasinski. They were so good in this, and their daughter. And there's some pretty tear-jerking scenes in this movie too, actually. Very well done though, and I enjoyed it. Number 6, Strangers Pray at Night. I saw this way back in February. If you follow my channel, you know how crazy I went over this movie. Ended up becoming friends with one of the guys that played one of the killers, Damien Maffei. This movie, it was just such a surprise to me. You know, I was wanting this movie to be good. I was a fan of the original movie, but I didn't want this movie to be a copy of the first one, and it wasn't. This was a full-fledged slasher movie, and you know how I feel about slashers. It really just ramped up everything in, the third act. From the pool scene on, it just kicked into high gear, top notch, and I loved it. From the sound composition, the tension that was built up, and really, the relationship between the brother and the sister. And what's crazy about this is, like, when I reviewed this movie, Bailey Madison actually saw the review. I woke up to this. You know, I published my review on the Thursday night that I saw it, and then I woke up and I checked my Twitter feed, and Bailey Madison had, left me this really nice comment on Twitter that just blew my mind. And this whole movie was just a whirlwind to me, but I still love it so much. 5 and on, these are all like 5 out of 5 movies. These are excellent. Number 5 is going to be Suspiria, the remake. I was very curious about this movie going in because the first one, I just saw it, I believe this year for the first time, and the first one quickly became one of my favorite horror movies just because of how unique it was. It felt like an experience. This one is an experience as well, but I like that it's so different from the original, all the way down to like the cinematography. The director did not choose to completely copy the first movie and really make this his own. And I'd say from like a character standpoint, this one was much more interesting than the original, actually. Dakota Johnson does such a great job in this movie, but really the dance scenes in this movie are so hypnotic and beautiful and terrifying. I just had so many emotions of this movie going in, and I can't wait to watch it again, actually, because I have a feeling it's going to be one of those that every time you watch it, you get something else out of it. But it's just a really unique and chilling movie. Number 4, another big surprise for me, Overlord. This was one of those movies that I'd see the trailer quite a few times before I saw it, and I thought, oh, it's just going to be another zombie movie, and the premise this time will be World War II. Okay, cool. And then it really shocked me. And I think the biggest thing with horror movies or any movies is characters. And if you give me good characters, that is just a huge step forward. And this one had great characters, especially the main character and also Kyle Russell, Kurt Russell's son. The last act in this movie, I was getting super strong vibes from movies like The Thing. I mean, he really reminded me of his dad as McCready in some parts of this movie. And, you know, even like the way the character handled himself was kind of similar to a McCready type character. But then the main character was so likable too, because he was the type of person that didn't want to kill anybody. He wasn't, he was there to serve his country, but he wasn't really wanting to take a life. And, and he was forced to deal with this. Also, this movie had a great villain. So much greatness with Overlord, actually, and it was probably my biggest surprise of the year. Number 3, Annihilation. This is one of those like bake your noodle type movies. You know, Alex Garland, who is one of my favorite directors and writers working today, he did Ex Machina, and I couldn't wait to see what he put out next. And this movie just grabbed me from start to finish. It's a beautifully textured movie. The whole shimmer plot was just so interesting because you never knew what was inside the shimmer. you know, mixing DNA and all that stuff was just so interesting to me. I love good sci-fi horror, and this is definitely one of the better ones. Without giving any spoilers, I'm gonna tell you, this is one of the best third acts of the whole year for horror movies, and it's definitely one that you will constantly be thinking about once you leave the theater, or once you finish watching it, if you're not watching it in the theater, of course. Also, Natalie Portman and Oscar Isaacs, I mean, top-notch performances, Oscar-worthy. Yeah, this is another one that I'm looking forward to watching again. Number 2, everybody was talking about this movie this year, Hereditary. This was a tough horror movie. There are scenes that are so frightening and chilling and more importantly, disturbing in this. You know, there are scenes that'll take the jaws of life to get out of your head with Hereditary. But also, I think some of the best horror movies deal with family, you know, because when members of your own family do horrific things to other members, it can be pretty damn crazy and frightening. And the performances by Toni Collette and Alex Wolff in this are jaw-dropping. Best performances of the year in my book. If Toni Collette doesn't get nominated for an Oscar, then something is wrong with the Academy. And Alex Wolff, I read that this movie messed him up so bad that he suffered from PTSD after doing it. That's how effective Hereditary is as a horror film. And then, number 1, no surprise here, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it right now, guys, I did not expect this. I was gonna be fair about this whole thing. You guys know how big of a Halloween fan I am, but Halloween 2018 tops my list. What David Gordon Green did with the character of Myers elevated him back up to a scary as hell horror icon. You know, with the help of James Jude Courtney, but really that direction by David Gordon Green is just so good. There were choices that were made with this movie that really kind of shocked me, you know, like in the bathroom scene. How, you know, he chose to, like, after Myers had just completely obliterated Aaron, you know, he chose to keep the camera right on him and just give us his reaction to his partner dying. She was his girlfriend. I said she was his wife, I think, in my review. You know, I got some of those actually comments, but you know what? It is what it is. But yeah, I mean, this movie really just hit me on so many levels. Jamie Lee Curtis's performance in this, I literally wanted her to die from the start before I saw this movie. And she gave such a strong performance in this movie that by the end I was rooting for her. And I did not expect that. I saw this twice in the theater, loved it both times, and I can't wait to see it again. Right now it sits at number 2 in the franchise ranking behind the original. David Gordon Green gave me and a lot of you the Halloween movie that we've been wanting for so long. And I love a lot of the choices, some of the controversial choices with the character of Sartain. I loved Sartain as a character. I'm glad that he wasn't a Loomis knockoff, that he was more kind of like Wynn, actually, from Part 6. You know, there were little homages to every movie in the franchise, which was really cool. But I didn't think the homages got in the way. So, you know, I could go on and on about Halloween 2018. But yeah, guys, that is my top 10 best horror movies of 2018. Looking forward to seeing what your top 10 are in the comments. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. On Fridays, we do Fearful Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.